Hi everyone, it's time for another instalment of There's a Boy in the Girls' Bathroom by Louis Sasha. Again, I'll read for about 15 minutes. You can switch the screen off and just listen to it. But yeah, lots of people have asked about what's happening next. We're on chapter 15. My poor baby, said Bradley's mother as she wrapped her massive arms around him. He had stopped crying shortly after he ran away from Melinda, but started again when he saw his mother. They beat me up and threw me in the mud, he sobbed. His mother wiped his face with a tissue. She kept rolled up her skirt sleeve. Come on, she said, and led him by the hand down the hall to the bathroom. You'll have to take a nice warm bath, put on clean clothes, and feel good as new. Claudia was in the bathroom combing her hair. What happened to him? Some bullies picked on him after school. There were 4 of them, said Bradley, and they ripped up my homework too. You've been crying, Claudia said. That's the rain. Claudia started to say something, but her mother told her to leave the bathroom. She laid out clean clothes on the bathroom counter, then started the water. After his bath, Bradley went into his bedroom. He was just in the nick of time. Ronnie the rabbit was romping across the bed, singing doo-dee-doo-dee-doo, when suddenly she was lost. Where am I? She asked. Suddenly 3 bad guys were chasing her. They were the 2 of spades, the 9 of hearts, and the king of diamonds. The king of diamonds was the leader of the bad guys. After her, he yelled. Help, called Ronnie. She ran to the edge of the bed. The cliff? She was trapped. The floor was 1,000 feet below. The bad guys moved in for the kill. Let me go, she shouted, and fell off the bed onto the floor. But that was an accident. Bradley picked her up and put her back on the edge of the bed. Never happened. There was time out. What are you going to do to me? Asked Ronnie, trembling on the edge of the cliff. We're going to kill you, said the king of diamonds. No, you're not, said a voice from behind. It was Bartholomew. Get him, boys, ordered the king of diamonds. The cards attacked. Bartholomew punched the 2 of spades in the stomach, then flicked him over his head and over the cliff. Ah! The 2 of spades yelled as he fell 1,000 feet to his death. Next, Bartholomew beat up the 9 of hearts. Go join your friend, he said as he threw him over the cliff too. Ah! Cried the 9. Now the only king of diamonds was left. He came at Bartholomew, swinging an axe. I'll chop off your head, he sneered. Bartholomew ducked, then kicked the axe out of the king's hand and punched his face. He threw the king over the cliff too. Ronnie ran to Bartholomew. You saved my life, she said. I know, said Bartholomew. They kissed. Claudia walked into the room. Mum's making cookies because you've got beat up, she said. Oh, you're going to have a black eye. I didn't get beat up, Bradley declared. I beat them up. I gave one kid 2 black eyes and the other boy 3. You can't give somebody 3 black eyes, said Claudia. Shut up, said Bradley, or I'll give you 4 black eyes. Claudia shrugged and left his room. Bradley got up from his bed and went into the kitchen, where his mother was making chocolate chip cookies. She let him lick the spoon. I want to know the names of the boys who did this to you, she said. I'm going to call your school principal. Bradley thought for a moment. I don't know all their names, he said. Don't be afraid to tell me, said his mother. They won't hurt you anymore. Bradley thought for the moment. Jeff Fishkin, he declared. He was the leader of the gang. I'll call the school first thing in the morning, said his mother. Good, said Bradley. I hope he gets into trouble. I hate him. Chapter 16. Bradley walked slowly, holding his hand over his eyes so nobody would see it. His mother would let him stay at home, but his father said he'd had to go. He's scared, his mother had said. Some bullies have been terrorising him. Babying him will not solve the problem, said his father. He has to learn to stand up for himself and fight back. The only reason the bullies pick on him is because they know he's afraid. Bradley was afraid, but not of bullies. He wasn't scared of Melinda either. It was little Laurie Weston who scared him. He could picture her standing in the middle of the playground with her big mouth shouting out for the whole school to hear. Melinda Birch beat up Bradley Chalkers and made him cry. Cautiously, he walked across the schoolyard, hand over eye, and entered Mrs. Ebble's class. He sat down in the last seat of the last row. Jeff's chair was empty. Good, he thought, still covering his eye. Probably got kicked out of school. Out of his uncovered eye, he looked at a chart full of gold stars on the wall next to him. He was glad he didn't have any. He thought gold stars were ugly. Mrs. Ebel was in the middle of teaching the difference between adjectives and adverbs when she suddenly stopped and asked Bradley, is there any something matter with in your eye? No. Please take your hand away from it. I can't, he said. Why can't you? Quickly tried to think of a reason why he had his eye covered. His mind raced through 100 ideas. My hand's stuck. It's stuck, said Mrs. Ebel. I was gluing something and I got glue on my hand and then I accidentally touched my face and my hand and it got stuck. Bradley, take your hand away from your eye. He grabbed his wrist with his free hand and pretended to try and pull it away. I can't, you see, it's stuck. Do you want to go to the principal's office? She asked. He's good at unsticking things. Wait, I think it's starting to loosen now, he said. He pried his hand away. There was a bluish-black circle around his eye. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then, everybody started talking at once. What happened? Asked Mrs. Ebel, but then quickly said, never mind, I don't want to know. She told the class to turn around and started again on adverbs and adjectives. Jeff walked in late. He said something to Mrs. Ebel, then sat down next to Bradley. Bradley looked the other way at a chart full of gold stars. All of the stars. Of all the stars, Jeff's were the ugliest. For once he wished he had sat in the front of the room. Then only Mrs. Ebel would have been able to see his face. Where he was, everyone could turn around and stare at him. All morning, Mrs. Ebel had to keep telling the kids to turn around and face the front. When the bell rang for recess, he put his hand over his eye and hurried outside. He went for the far end of the playground where nobody would bother him, but the word quickly spread that Bradley Chalkers had a black eye, and kids kept wandering past him, trying to get a peek. Melinda fights dirty, said Jeff, coming up behind him. She hit you when you weren't looking, and you couldn't hit her back because it's impolite to hit a girl. Right, said Bradley, turning round. I would have punched her in the face, except it's impolite. Melinda probably told the whole school that she beat me up, so she's just stupid. No, I don't think she's told anyone. After you left, she asked me not to tell anyone what happened. She made Laurie and Colleen promise not to tell too. She's probably afraid I'll punch her in the face, said Bradley. Probably, said Jeff. Then, this morning I was called into the principal's office. He thought I was the one that hit you. Who'd you tell him? Bradley asked. Jeff shrugged. Told him your best friend. The principal's stupid, Bradley agreed. Chapter 17. Jeff and Bradley ate lunch together around the side of the building where nobody would bother him. Jeff stood up. I'll be right back, he said. I'll have to go to the bathroom. Which one? Asked Bradley. Boys, said Jeff. Oh, said Bradley. I'll wait for you here. It was a very long wait. Hey, Jeff, Robbie called as Jeff stepped out of the bathroom. Me? Asked Jeff. He was surprised because Robbie had always called him Fish Nose or Fish Brain. Come over here, said Robbie. A group of boys was with him. Jeff recognised some from his class, but didn't know them all. One of the boys had a basketball. Hi, Jeff, said Brian, a boy from his class. Hi, Brian, he replied. How's it going, Jeff? Asked Russell. Okay. This is Jeff Fishkin, Robbie told the boys who weren't in his class. He's the guy that gave Chalkers the black eye. Way to go, Jeff, said one of the boys he didn't know. All right, Jeff, said another. Oh man, would I have liked to have seen that. Man, when I saw Chalker's eye today, I just smiled, and then when I found out you got caught in the principal's office, I thought, way to go, Jeff. You didn't get into trouble, did you, Jeff? Asked Dan. Jeff shook his head. Probably gave him a medal, said Russell, laughing. The others laughed too. You like to play basketball, Jeff? Asked Andy, the boy with the basketball. Sure, said Jeff. They chose teams. Robbie and Andy were captains. Robbie had first pick. I got Jeff. Jeff beamed. They played basketball for the remainder of the lunch period. Jeff's team won. But it was also the team of the 5 players. The other team only had 4. Everyone told him he played a great game. I always wondered why a guy like you was hanging around with chalkers, said Robbie. I guess it just took you a while to find out who your real friends were. Jeff smiled. These were the kind of friends he had back in his old school in Washington, D.C. Of course, it's meant to be. Doesn't mean he couldn't be friends with Bradley anymore, but he shrugged. Chapter 18. From around the corner of the brick building, Bradley watched the end of Jeff's basketball game. Every time Jeff took a shot, Bradley prayed he'd miss. When the bell rang, he hurried back to the class ahead of Jeff and the other boys. He sat at his desk, last seat, last row, and took out one of his books. It didn't matter which one, he stared at it intently as Jeff sat down next to him. Well, maybe. It was okay for Jeff to have other friends. He decided as he turned a page. I'm still his best friend. That's what he told me to the principal. Jeff won't lie to the principal. Maybe I'll get to play with basketball with his new friends too, like Carla said. Jeff whispered. He wanted to tell Jeff that everything was still okay and that they could be friends. Hey, Jeff. Jeff didn't look up from his work. Jeff works hard, Bradley realised. That's how he gets all the gold stars. He had to wait until after school. Hey, Jeff, he said as soon as the bell rang. Jeff picked up his books and started out the door. Bradley hurried after him. Jeff, wait up! Jeff stopped and slowly turned round. Bradley suddenly felt very nervous. Do you want to do our homework together? He asked. You can come over to your house if you want, or you could come over to mine. We can use my book, see? He showed Jeff his book. Hey, out of our way, chalkers, said Robbie, as he and Brian pushed past him. Chicken chalkers, said Brian. Yeah, chalkers, said Jeff. Bradley walked away. He heard Jeff and his new friends laughing behind him. But when he got home, his own friends were very glad to see him. So glad you're home, said Ronnie. We've missed you. We're glad you didn't go over to Jeff's house. You're our best friend, said Bartholomew. Hooray for Bradley, shouted the hippopotamus. Hip, hip, hooray, yelled the animals. Hip, hip, hooray, they yelled. Hip, hip, said the hippo one last time. Hooray. Let's play a game, said the donkey. What do you want to play? Said Ronnie. Anything but basketball, said Bartholomew. I hate basketball. Basketball's a stupid game, Ronnie agreed. It's the worst game in the world, said the hippopotamus. Why would anyone want to play basketball? Laughed the ivory donkey. All the other animals laughed too. And that's the end of this section. We're up to chapter 9 now. So you're doing really, really well. Hope you enjoyed it.